Hi everyone, so today I'm going to be replacing the timing belt and water pump on my 2006 Honda Accord. Okay, so our first step is we're going to have to jack up the car and remove the tire so that we can get at this panel in here and remove these clips to take this panel off. Now there's a bunch of clips here and there's one back there that'd be easier to see once the tire's gone. You can remove the entire panel because there's clips underneath here, or you could just remove this front part. It's up to you. It's really not too difficult. What I do is I take a screwdriver, stick it in on the side, and then wiggle these clips out until you get them out. That's the best way to keep from breaking them so you can reuse them. So now we're going to remove the serpentine belt. We're going to loosen the tensioner. This is 14 millimeter. We're gonna get in there. It's kind of difficult, so just get some good leverage on it. Loosen it off. And there you go. Now it's off. Okay, now we're gonna disconnect the power steering line. So right here. Gonna move this. Wiggle. There we go. And now it's disconnected. Alright. I'm probably gonna find a good place to put this so it doesn't leak everywhere. I'm gonna set it over there. That should be good. Alright, now we're gonna remove the power steering pump, and this, we're gonna take out this bolt down here and then this bolt right there. This is 12 millimeter bolts, and this one's pretty easy to get to. It's pretty simple. This one down here took a little bit of creativity. This one down here, it took a little bit of creativity. Had to get a wrench in there and short movements. All right, now that the power steering pump is detached, we're just gonna set it out of the way. We're gonna make sure that the fluid is, the valve is up so that it doesn't leak anywhere, and we don't wanna put too much strain on any of the lines. So we're gonna set it right over there. And there we go. Now we're gonna take off the tensioner. We're gonna disconnect that bolt. And then we're going to disconnect that bolt right there. Those are both 12 millimeters. And then that should get off the tensioner, and we'll have more access to the timing belt. Alright, now that we got the two bolts out, we're going to take the tensioner. Just going to pull it right out, and we're going to set it over here. There we go. Alright, now that the tensioner is out of the way and the power steering pump, we're going to get these 4 bolts out for the front and the back covers. And then there's also a 5th bolt on each one right about there and there that needs to come out of the way before we can get these off. Now that we got the 5 10 millimeter bolts off the front cover, it just pops right off, and then we'll got the 5 off the 10 millimeter bolts off the back cover. She should just come right off too. Set her to the side. There we go. There we go. I want to lose the seal. And we'll move on to the next step. And then that right there is your timing belt. Alright, now that we have the front and the back covers off, we're going to take off this lower pulley down here so we can get at the bottom cover. So I got my special tool that'll keep the pulley from rotating, and then I've also got this extra long socket wrench so that I can get some more force on it. So let's get started. Alright, so I got my special tool hooked up in there. Got it attached to a socket wrench so it won't move. I have my extender, and then I've got it supported on a jack so that it gives it leverage and it won't come off. So it's level. And here we go.
Ready?
Yeah. There we go. Alright. Alright, now to get this thing off, we're just gonna grab both sides and wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. There she goes. Pretty simple. Alright, now we're going to remove the bottom cover, and to do that we're going to take out 6 10 millimeter bolts. The one right here, one back there, and then one right there, one down there, another one over there, and then one more on the bottom left. So down here you can see them better. You got this one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. All right, let's get started. There we go. Okay. One. That one's broken loose. This one. Two. And then I'm just gotta get the other 4. Alright, now we're gonna remove the engine mount. To do this, we're gonna need a 10 millimeter socket, 14 millimeter socket, and 17 millimeter socket. So that's this thing right here. And we're taking that off. But before we do that, we need to jack up the engine so that it doesn't mess up the threads. So I put a jack there with a piece of wood, and here we go. That's your 10 millimeter. We're gonna remove these 17mm bolts. So you got one right there, and then one right there. That one's loose. We'll get this one. All right, there we go. All right, now she comes. There we go. 3 14mm bolts, one right here, one right here, and then one down there. And then we're also going to remove that 10mm bolt. Now make sure you remove the 10mm bolt before you remove these. All right, once we get all 3 out, it just kind of slides right off. Now we have access. Now before we do anything else, we have to be very careful with this because we don't want to take it apart and then not put it back right. So there's a specific number of these teeths, and when you take it off, it won't. And when you take it off and then try to put it back on, when you put it on, it won't be at the correct tension. So we want to make sure that we line up this teeth with exactly that hole, or this teeth with exactly that hole. We don't want it to be this one at that hole and that one at that hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark this so that I know exactly where it was, and I'll transfer those marks to the other timing belt. Alright, I just used some whiteout to indicate which way it was going and which sprocket we're going to be on. And then same thing over here. Some whiteout, and then the same thing down there. Just, yep. So now we're going to start removing the tensioner. Alright, this is it. You get that out. Step 1. Now we got to take this off. Try to be careful so that your pulleys don't move. Okay, and this one's got a shield, so we're going to be careful with how we take it off so it doesn't move. Just kind of wiggle. And there we go. And it's off. I'll just pull it up, out up the top. There we go. Oh, caught. And there we go. We'll set it to the side and then transfer those marks over later. All right, now we're going to remove the tensioner. Got this and the bolt. Now we're going to take out this last bolt here. That's the last piece. And then all we have is a water pump now. Now to get the water pump off, we have 5 10mm bolts that we need to take. So 1 right here, 2 right there, 3, 4, and 5. So number 1. One's broke loose. That's a bad way. Two's broke loose. Three's broke loose. Four. And 5. There we go. We're going to take the water pump off. Yeah. we go. To assemble. Alright, this is our new water pump. We're just going to put it on and then put in the 5-10 millimeter bolts. Alright, now that the water pump's on, I just cleaned out the area with a rag. Make sure it's not dirty or contaminated. We don't want to mess up our new belt by having some dirt. Alright, now we're going to put in the new idler pulley. Make sure you put it in this way. If you put it in backwards like that, you're going to have a bad day. So notice the difference. This end is right and it sits better. Before I put it in though, I'm going to apply some RTD to this thread. Alright, there we go. Should do it. On this one, we don't want it to be too tight. We want it to be kind of loose. So that's kind of what we're going to leave it at. Right about there. There we go. Oh, see that. Alright, now we're going to put in the new tensioner. So this thing, if we have it this way, this one's going to go in like that. And then this thing's going to go in here. And it's going to go right over there on the water pump. First, I'm going to put some thread locker on this bolt too. Alright, I got some thread locker on this. Now, in she goes. Right over here. Just like this. Like that. Oh, we wanted pretty tight, so she's not going anywhere. Okay. Step is this spring-loaded tensioner. So remember those two 10 millimeter bolts, and then we're gonna leave this in until we get the belt in. All right, now we're gonna put in the new timing belt. I'm gonna start with the bottom. And I'll work from there. Alright, so we're gonna line up our marks. There we go. Got that one in. Okay, and we'll go work on top. Okay. Alright, now that we got the belt on, putting the belt on was actually rather difficult. It was pretty tight, and then once you add the tensioner in there, it got really tight, but man, that was not easy. Alright, now we're going to put the mount back on with those 3 14 millimeter bolts. Boom, boom, boom. Just going to go right in there. There we go. Alright, now that we have that engine mount on, we're going to install the lower cover. So that takes 6 10 millimeter bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. My bad. 7 10 millimeter bolts. Next steps, front cover, then the back cover. I just got the front cover on by putting the 5 10 millimeter bolts back in, and now we're going to go to the back cover and put the 5 10 millimeter bolts back in there. Alright, now that we have all the covers back on, we're going to go ahead and put the tensioner back on for the serpentine belt. that goes with one 14mm bolt, and then another 12mm bolt that goes right there. All right, now that the tensioner's on, we're gonna put on the pulley. And there we go. Bolt. Just gonna. There we go. All right, and then we'll tighten her up. Probably need to, we're gonna get our special tool, stick that thing in there. Okay, wedge this in. Let's go right about there. Get our go. I think that's pretty tight. Now we're going to reassemble the mount. Put those two bolts in, and then 1, 2, and then a third one right over here. 1, 2, 3. All right. All right, now we're going to put the power steering back on with these two 12mm bolts. Here we go. All right, once you get the power steering pump on, then you go ahead and put the serpentine belt back on. And to do that, you gotta make sure you push this tensioner back and so you can rearrange it. And then you connect the low pressure line for the power steering pump. Put the tire back on, put some fluid back in it, and you should be good. Make sure you do make sure that you, before you start it up, that you turn your wheels back and forth so you get the air out of the power steering line. Because if you don't, you're gonna get some smoking and some squealing in it. Might sound scary. All right, I hope you enjoyed my video.